We are now officially live.
Soti everyone, and welcome to our weekly online Dhamma group with Venerable Dhammo, who's joining us from the Meditation Center in Sri Lanka, and the online Sri Mangalo community. Today we will continue our study of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta for 1 hour, and then we will have discussions and questions and answers. As usual, we will begin today's session by taking together refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and accept the 5 training precepts. By taking refuge in the Triple Gem every week, we profess or we strengthen our acceptance of them for guiding our lives. It's still the same formula as it was during the Buddha's time, and by reciting it, one declares themselves a Buddhist. The observance of the 5 precepts is the minimum standard that's necessary to form a decent life and of further progress towards Nibbana. Is there someone in the Discord who would like to lead the precepts today?
I would like to.
Thank you, Martin.
Ahang Bante Ti Saranena Saha Pancha Silani Yachami Dutiyampi Ahang Bante Ti Saranena Saha Pancha Silani Yachami Tatiyampi Ahang Bante Ti Saranena Saha Pancha Silani Yachami.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Isaranagamana mititang
Amapante.
Panatipata viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinna viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kamesu Michachara Viramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiya.
Kamesu Michachara Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Musavada Viramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Musavada Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Sura Meraya Manjapamadatthana Viramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Sura Meraya Majja Amadatthana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Imani Pancha Sikkhapadani Silena Sugating Yanti Silena Bhoga Sampada Silena Nibuting Yanti Tasma Silang Visodhaye.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu,
Sa-
sadhu,
sa-
sadhu.
Sadhu. So now we will get into our reading of the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta by the late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw. Before we begin reading, please remember to read 2 paragraphs each, and we go in alphabetical order. I or someone will post it soon. And please remember to read slowly and carefully and take a short pause between each paragraph. And also feel free to ask questions during these breaks, and don't shy away if you want to ask something. If you're not on the stage, you can send a request if you have done the at-home course and read with us. And otherwise, we will continue with Attachment and Aggregates of Attachment, which is the PDF page 121, and the physical book 111. First reader for today would be Sanda.
Attachment and the aggregates of attachment. Now I will describe the difference between attachment and the aggregates of attachment. Attachment, upadana, means tenaciously clinging or grasping, of which there are 4 types.
We're at the end of the truth of suffering. As in brief, the truth of suffering is the 5 gates of attachment. And we've gone, and this is just the very end of the discussion of the truth of suffering of the 4 Noble Truths, the first of the 4 Noble Truths.
One, attachment to sensual pleasures, kamupadana, which is attachment born of craving for sensual desires.
Craving for sensual pleasures, not desires. Desire is really the craving, so craving for the pleasure of the senses. The other thing to note about that is that craving is often often accompanied by pleasure. At the very least, it's accompanied by a neutral feeling. But quite often it's accompanied, meaning the moment that you like something or want something, it's a happy feeling about it. There's pleasure involved, which is why, of course, it's so pernicious.
2. Attachment to wrong view, Dhitupadana, which is the attachment to the view that there is no karma and no results thereof, no afterlife, no Supreme Buddha, no Arahants. All other wrong views apart from self-view, Attaditi, and attachment to rites and rituals, Silabbata Paramasa, are known as attachment to wrong views.
And that's because those two are enumerated as the next, as 3 and 4 here. That's the only reason they're not included. They're also wrong views, but they're a specific sort of wrong view. Or perhaps they're not quite views, they're a different sort of wrongness.
Three.
Oh, sorry, Sanda. Is it my time to read it, guys?
I guess you can go ahead, Venerable Sayadaw.
3. Attachment to rites and rituals, Silabbatupadana, which is the practice of certain rituals or ceremonies that have nothing to do with understanding the Four Noble Truths, nor the development of the Noble Eightfold Path, believing that they will lead to release from the suffering of the cycle of existence and to permanent peace, free from aging, disease, and death. It is a type of wrong view, Michaditi, maintaining that what is wrong is right. Or attachment to the soul belief, Atawadupadana, which is attachment to the belief in a soul, ego, or a living entity. It is the same as the wrong view of personality view, Sakkaya Ditti, and self view, Attaditti.
Of the 4 types of attachment, attachment to the sensual desire is craving. I suppose attachment to the sensual pleasure, as Bhante has alerted, is craving. The remainder are all various kinds of wrong views. Thus, they can be recognized as just 2 kinds: attachment to and attachment to sense pleasures. The objects of such attachments consist of mind and matter, known as the aggregates of attachment. To summarize, the 2 objects that can cause attachments as I or mine are aggregates of attachment.
Yeah, another way to look at attachment is a threefold. He says twofold, which is interesting. I mean, it's neat to think that the 4 which we normally learn about here can actually just be summarized in terms of 2, but there's actually a third, and that's conceit. Iti, mana, tanha are the 3 aspects or ways of attaching, or you could say types of attachment. So tanha is craving, mana is conceit, thinking you're better than someone or worse than someone, or comparing yourselves to others, or holding yourself up to be good or bad, or that sort of thing. And ditti, which is view. And these are summarized in there's a stock phrase that comes in the Anattalakkana Sutta, the 2nd discourse of the Buddha, where he says, Etam mama This is mine. Etam mama eso me. Etam mama e. I can't. I blank now. Etam mama eso hamasmi. Yeah. Etam mama. This is mine. Eso. Etam mama eso hang asmi. This I am. Etang me atati. Esang me atati. This is myself. So conceit is the identification with things. That this is, I'm this, I'm that. You know, this is projecting yourself onto things. And this is myself is view. When you believe this is self, this is soul, the belief, that's view. And you'll hear this again and again, these three sorts that can be explained as iti, mana, tanha, views, conceit, and craving. Eso me, eso hamasmi, eso me ata. Yeah, sorry, I'm having trouble remembering the exact Pali.
Attachment as I is the wrong view of self, which opens the way to the remaining two wrong views. When attachment arises out of desire, the objects of desire, which may not even belong to oneself, are grasped at as if they are one's own. The Pali text describe how this desire leads to grasping possessively as this is mine, etam mama.
Yeah, this is part of the quote that I gave. Interesting. He's don't know if he'll mention the other two, but there's three. Etam mama eso hamasmi, eso me ata.
Will you skip my turn, Deliver?
Okay. Zach?
Mental and physical aggregates that can cause attachment through wrong view as a self, a being, or clinging to possessively as mine are called the aggregates of attachment. The mental aggregates that cannot give rise to clinging through desire or wrong view are just called aggregates and not aggregates of attachment. Such mental aggregates are the feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness of the four supermundane paths and fruitions. They are merely mental aggregates and not aggregates of attachment.
So what that means is the experience of nibbana. There's no possibility to attach, and the others are only called aggregates of attachment, not because they are intrinsically attachment, but because they are potentially a source for attachment, an object of attachment. I mean, he's just being very technical here and saying, actually, not all reality is something you can attach to. Obviously, the supermundane reality, there's no possibility for attachment.
The mundane types of materiality, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness that we have repeatedly mentioned above are the aggregates which incite attachment and are therefore called aggregates of attachment.
So trying to understand why this is the truth of suffering, what we have to understand is the truth of suffering is a teaching. We're teaching to see that something is not sukha, and learning to see that the reason why we suffer is because things that are not happiness, that we're clinging to them. So the truth of suffering is about learning this and seeing that these things that we attach to, and why we attach to them, is because we think they are sukha, we think they are happiness, or a cause for happiness. That's why we attach to them. But since they are not, they cause us suffering. And so these things are dukkha. All of these things are suffering. And that doesn't mean when they arise, you suffer. What it means is they are not happiness. They cannot bring you happiness. They cannot satisfy you. Happiness doesn't come as a result of clinging to them. And when you see that, you stop clinging to them. This is a pedagogical doctrine. This is a teaching doctrine. It's about learning something. And when you learn this, you stop clinging to them. That's why clinging is so important in the truth of suffering, because it's the clinging that causes the suffering. And the things that you cling to are, knowing that they are suffering, eradicates the clinging. You stop clinging to things when you see that, oh, these are suffering. So these things are suffering. Them being the cause of attachment is important, because when you see that they are suffering, you stop clinging to them. That's why repeatedly, in regards to suffering, it's talk about the aggregates of clinging. And you specify that because they themselves are not a problem. Body is not a problem, feeling is not a problem. The problem is the clinging to them. And the problem is that you see them as an object of happiness. When you learn that they are not that, you stop clinging to them. So calling them suffering is a shorthand from saying things that can't satisfy you. Things that are not happiness are not a cause for happiness. And again, this is a thing to be learned through the practice of mindfulness, as you pay attention without judgment, without extrapolation. When you experience things just as they are, you will see they are not that which can cause us, or that which can bring us satisfaction, and so the attachment ceases. And then the suffering ceases. But you're learning that they are suffering. The painful experiences, because we obviously, obviously I know that those are not happiness, but the point is not that you know that, the point is not whether they are painful or pleasant. The point is whether you attach to them, because we attach just as much to painful experiences. We attach to painful experiences thinking, I will get rid of these. How can I get rid of these? And so dukkha also means not just that they can't satisfy you, but you cannot find a way to make them not hurt you. You can't find a way to make them stop causing you suffering. In other words, you can't be satisfied by getting rid of them. And this, of course, both of these relate, of course, to the three characteristics, because what you see, the most important thing for you to see, which is not, there's no detail here about this in this sutta, but the detail is when you pay attention and you see them clearly, you'll see that they are impermanent, that they are unsatisfying, and that they are not self. And you can't control them. You can't make them go away, make them stay away. Can't make the good ones stay, can't make the good ones not never come. And so practice is about paying attention and seeing this truth of suffering. It's really the essence of Buddhism. It's so important to understand it correctly, that it's not just everything is terrible, everything is bad, everything is suffering. No, we suffer not because of these things, but because we cling to them. We think, oh, this will make me happy. Or, oh, if I fix this, then I'll be happy. If I get rid of this, then I'll be happy. These things are why we're suffering. We're suffering because All of these things, we don't see them clearly because we don't understand that they are not capable of bringing us happiness. And we're not capable of getting rid of the bad ones and keeping the good ones. That's why they are the truth of suffering. It's more than just saying everything's bad. It's saying that nothing's worth clinging to.
I think you had one more paragraph, Zach.
I've read 2 paragraphs.
Okay, sorry, then I got lost.
No problem.
Are we at the mundane types or the next one?
Yes, the mundane types.
Thank you. The mundane types of materiality, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness that we have repeatedly mentioned above are the aggregates which incite attachment and are therefore called aggregates of attachment. The mundane, mental and physical aggregates are the material forms and the sense store consciousness, kama vachara citta, and the mental states, cetasika, that manifest at the 6 sense doors to a person of no jhanic attainments every time he or she sees, hears, smells, tastes, touches, or thinks. To a person of jhanic attainments, consciousness of the realms of form, rupa vachara jhana citta, and formless consciousness, arupa vachara jhana citta, also manifest at the mind's door in addition to the above aggregates. All these 5 aggregates of attachment are the truth of suffering, which form suitable objects for insight meditation. The Blessed One later described them as phenomena, Dhamma, that should be understood rightly through insight and knowledge of the path. In the 3rd part of my discourse, I defined path factor of right view as the knowledge of the truth of suffering, that is, the knowledge accruing from contemplation of these 5 aggregates.
So there's 3 mundane realms, and what that means is, by mundane we mean ordinary experience, arisen experience, so experience of something arising. Everything that arises is considered mundane, because that which is super mundane, there's no arising. When something arises, it's one of these 3 things. Kama means the sensual realm. This is the ordinary realm of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, thinking, with the potential of liking it or disliking it, of reacting to it. Rupa vachara and arupa vachara are just very specific exceptional states. So almost everything is kama vachara. But if you enter into very specific attainments, you somehow rise above this. And it's important to include these or to detail these separately, because they're often thought of in other religious or spiritual traditions as super mundane. But they're not. And it's an important point that they're not, that they are also subject to the 3 characteristics, for example. No matter how stable, satisfying, and controllable jhana, which means tranquility meditation states are, they're still impermanent, they're still unsatisfying, they're still uncontrollable. Ultimately, they come and they go. And if you want them, you have to work hard to get them. And when you stop working hard, they just disappear. They will never last forever. And so they will never satisfy you. And it's also important to note that those can also be an object of meditation, because for those people who have practiced types of meditation that tranquilize you, or for those who practice satipatthana vipassana and experience these states, it's quite easy to be caught up by them and attached to them and cling to them and get lost in them, thinking that somehow they are stable, satisfying, or controllable. And it's important to note calm, tranquil states, peaceful states, pleasant states, quiet states. So many of these sorts of people who have good states of concentration, experience quietude. They'll say there's nothing. This often happens in Buddhist countries. I had this experience with many Thai meditators who would say, yeah, I practiced for a while, but after a while, there's nothing to note. It's just quiet. And I mean, I learned from my teacher to have them note quiet, but it's something that you don't think of. And it's quite revealing when they start to note the quiet, because they start to appreciate that this quietude is not something to be clung to. They appreciate, yes, it too will pass. And having passed, it didn't make me a better person. It didn't free me from the potential for suffering. It's not enough. I mean, not that we judge it, but important to note it. Otherwise, you will judge it. You'll think, "Oh, this is good. This means I can stop meditating now because I feel quiet." But no, you meditate. Quiet is actually a state. It's called passaddhi. You know, quiet.
Bhante, in the suttas, there's often mentioned that the Arahants or the Buddha was staying in a quiet, peaceful abiding, basically. Aren't those the jhanas?
For arahants, that's usually nirodha or some sort of palasamapati.
Yeah, I thought so.
But I mean, yes, they are peaceful states. I mean, there's no question. An arahant doesn't have a problem because they know that they already know what needs to be known. The problem is for someone who's not an arahant, they're more likely to cling with iti, mana, or tanha. There's no problem with entering into the states. It's just if an ordinary person is not mindful of them, yeah, it's a breeding ground still for. Even if it's not going to give rise to unwholesomeness, it's a block. You'll never get to the point where you can become an arahant because you'll never see clearly enough. That's all. Sorry, I kind of cut you off.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand if the peaceful abiding was the Palasamapati or the jhanic experiences, because sometimes the Buddha or the teacher in the specific sutta would talk about going from the first jhana to the next, and then after those, right, entering nibbana.
So that would be when they're describing Nirodha Samapati, which is a very sort of special attainment where you go through all of them.
Yeah.
But there is talk in the commentary explanation of what the Buddha meant when he, like, actually noble silence, I believe, is what? One of the jhanas. Would that be the second jhana or the fourth or fifth jhana? I don't know. Anyway, the commentary is very specific about these things, what it means when they talk about noble silence. But I think it certainly also explains how for the Buddha would enter into Nirodha or Pala or something very quickly. When he would give a talk and the people would say sadhu, sadhu, Mahasi Sayadaw talks about this. He says when the Buddha would give a talk and the people listening would say sadhu, while they were saying sadhu, he would enter into cessation. Yeah, the
Okay,
peaceful
thank you.
abiding would usually be nibbana.
Yes, makes sense. Here it must be stressed that the aggregates of attachment should be personally realized as the real truth of suffering by clearly perceiving their nature of arising, vanishing, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and insubstantiality by mindfully observing the material aggregates, eye and sight, ear and sound, etc., and mental aggregates, eye consciousness, ear consciousness, etc., when they manifest at the six doors of senses on every occasion of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. It is a matter for gratification that some meditators of this center have seen reality as it is by the practice of mindfulness in accordance with the Satipatthana method, that is, by taking note of every manifestation as it occurs at each of the six doors of senses. They should congratulate themselves that they have come to know the Dhamma as taught by the Blessed One. In brief, the five aggregates of attachment are suffering, and strive all the more strenuously to attain more complete knowledge.
To recapitulate, I will repeat the 12 types of suffering. Number 1, birth, jati, or new becoming is suffering. Number 2, aging, jara, is suffering. Number 3, death, maranam, is suffering. Number 4, grief, soka, is suffering. Number 5, lamentation, paridewa, is suffering. Number 6, physical pain, dukkha, is suffering. Number 7, sorrow, domanassa, is suffering. Number 8, despair, upayasa, is suffering. Number 9, association with the unloved, apiyahi, sambayogo, is suffering. Number 10, separation from loved ones, piyehi, vipayogo, is suffering. Number 11, not getting what one wants is suffering. Yampichamna labhati, yampicha chamnayi labhati. It is futile to wish for freedom from aging, disease, and death without developing the Noble Eightfold Path. That wish will never be fulfilled. Thus, wishing to get something that is unattainable is suffering. In the mundane realm, too, hankering for what is unattainable is suffering. Number 12, in brief, the 5 aggregates of attachment, samkittina, panka, upadana, khanda, which can incite attachment as I, mine, are suffering. I have fully dealt with the definition and enumeration of the truth of suffering and have taken some time over it. I will end the discourse here for today.
So, though we've kind of been over this, but just to be clear, the first, all of them except for the last one are kind of in a different category from the last one, which it should be clear from how we talk about them, but it's a different way of talking about suffering. So the first ones are more talking about the problem with the things that we call dukkha, which is the last one. So we talk about the last one. The last one is that all aggregate, except for anything that you can cling to, is dukkha. And why it's dukkha is because when you attach to it, all the rest of this stuff happens. Birth, or aging, and death only happen because of attachment. When you die, if you attach, you'll be born again. You get old again. You'll die again. Only comes from attachment. Only comes because your belief comes from attachment, though. Only comes from attachment. Association with the unloved, separation from love can only come if there's attachment. Not getting what you want, obviously, as well, attachment. So when we talk about the last one, we're not actually talking about things that are unpleasant. We're talking about as dukkha in terms of our attachment to them, which is why he doesn't say the aggregates are suffering, but the aggregates of attachment are suffering. It's a brief way of saying something that takes a more complicated explanation. We can't just sum it up by saying these are bad, or these are painful, or these are suffering, right? When you translate dukkha as suffering, technically correct, but confuses people. And this is why people think, oh, Buddha said everything is just suffering. No, he said it's all dukkha. And it's dukkha as an object of attachment, you see. It's not dukkha by itself. It's dukkha as an object of attachment. If and when these things don't have any attachment, no attachment to these things, then there's no potential for dukkha. There's no cause for dukkha. But calling them dukkha means saying they're not good, saying they're not worth attaching to. They have no worth. They have no value. They're not the sort of thing you should look at and say, oh, that's something worth attaching to. When you see them clearly, you won't do that. You'll say, oh, that is not worth attaching to. That's what's meant by dukkha. It's a way of saying not sukha. Dukkha and sukha are opposites. When we say it's dukkha, means it's not sukha. Don't think that is going to make you happy. When you look at it clearly and see it clearly, you'll see that clinging to anything will only cause you stress and suffering.
May all of you good people in this audience, by virtue of having given respectful attention to this great discourse on the turning of the wheel of Dhamma, be able to develop the middle path, otherwise called the Noble Eightfold Path, by contemplating the 5 aggregates of attachment, the truth of suffering, which should be clearly and completely understood, and by means of the path and its fruition, according to your wish, attain and soon realize Nibbana, the end of all suffering. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu,
sadhu.
sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So, just briefly to remind ourselves where we're at. This is the first discourse of the Buddha, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, and we're reading the discourse on the sutta, which is kind of like a discourse on a discourse by the Mahasi Sayadaw. You could call it a commentary, but it's called the Discourse on the Discourse of the Turning of the Wheel of the Dhamma. But so the discourse starts with these 5 ascetics who think the Buddha has given up the right path by abandoning torturing himself, abandoning going to the highest degree of self-mortification, what do you call when you deny yourself, self-denial? There's a word for it. By taking a more moderate approach. And so the first thing he does in the discourse is talk to them about the middle way. He says, look, torturing yourself is no better. It's no good, just as indulging yourself in sensuality is no good. And he said, I found a third way. That's the first part, which is kind of like an introduction. It's not the turning of the wheel of the Dhamma per se. So he does mention the Eightfold Noble Path, which is very much the core of the Buddhist teaching, but the Four Noble Truths are the real turning of the Dhamma. So then he goes into, this is the first Noble Truth. And so now we've discussed that. This is where the Buddha, he said, once he's won them over and they've appreciated that maybe it's right that there is a third way, that actually torturing yourself isn't the true way to freedom from suffering. And once he'd won them over, then he could teach them the Four Noble Truths, which was the true turning of the wheel of Dhamma.
So all of this now was just the first noble truth, and we still have the other three.
Yes.
Part 5. Delivered on Sunday, the 28th of October, 1962. Last week, on the 21st of October, when I gave a discourse on the 4th part of the sutta, I dealt with the exposition on the truth of suffering. Today I will continue with the exposition of the truth of the origin of suffering. First, I will repeat the 4 truths.
Number 1, the truth of suffering, dukkha satcha. Number 2, the truth of the origin of suffering, samudaya satcha. 3, the truth of the cessation of suffering, nirodha satcha. 4, the truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering, magga satcha. As explained in the 4th part of this discourse, after defining the truth of suffering, which he had discovered personally by penetrative insight, the Blessed One went on to define the truth of the cause of suffering.
Right, so when he talks about the parts, he's talking about these parts, which I didn't get when he said last time he said the 3rd part, which was the previous part, because what we just read was the ending of the 4th part, which is the 4th session. He gave these, of course, in a series of sessions, a series of talks. So now we're on to part 5. So when he talks about part 4, he means basically the section that we just finished.
I don't know if I should interrupt or not, but yeah, I guess going to the next section. And I just wanted to talk or ask about like the difference and between tanha and upadana, because this last section was mostly about upadana, right? Like the clinging part of the whole wheel of suffering. And as I understand, like tanha will be there, but we shouldn't let it turn into padana. So clinging, right? And I'm thinking or wondering about like, how do you know, for example, you came, let's say you had upadana, you had the clinging for something, and then that's lost, for example, or maybe it's just tanha now, or the other direction, like from tanha, how do I know it's just tanha at the moment and not yet upadana?
Well, one thing you said is not correct and has to be corrected, is that
Okay.
you cannot work to not make tanha become upadana. It always becomes upadana. That's the key. There really
Okay.
isn't a difference. Upadana is the consequences of tanha. So what happens is you want something. And people think, well, I want it, but I can do without it, so that's no problem. It is a problem. You've already lost by wanting it. Wanting always leads to clinging. That's the key. It's kind of like the hardening of it. If you heat up a substance, and then as a result of heating it up, it melts, and then there's the hardening in a new form, something like that. I mean, it's a consequence of the heating up. Upadana is the hardening into a very real thing that leads to bhava, leads to doing. It's not possible for upadana not to lead to bhava. The only hope you have is to not let Vedana become tanha. And this is why you hear some teachers really harp on about Vedana. There's nothing wrong with that. It's of course very important. Vedana is, for this reason, crucial and incredibly important to pay attention to. It's why we harp on about it to meditators, always making sure that they're noting painful feelings, pleasant feelings, neutral and calm feelings. Often meditators are surprised at how vehement we are or insistent we are that they note Vedana. And the way that you prevent Vedana from becoming tanha, of course, is by eradicating avidya, which is way back at the beginning, right? But it's always there. Or you eradicate delusion, you eradicate avidya. When you see Vedana clearly, and it's not just Vedana, when you see any aspect of the experience clearly, of course, then that doesn't arise. That's the solution.
Okay, so it's one step from Vedana to tanha, not the tanha to upadana.
Yeah, if you look at Abhidhamma, there's no distinction, right? Tanha and upadana. It's more a way of describing it, because when you want something, you're already lost. It's basically the Buddha's way of saying this. When you want something, you're already lost, because it leads to, you can't just want it and not react. The wanting already makes you react.
So,
You get stuck.
Yes,
related, if you want to finish.
No, I just wanted to say that just because, I mean, it's treated separately, or it seems like it's a different step from tanha. There is upadana. I mean, because of tanha, upadana arises. But yeah, that's all.
It kind of is. I mean, it certainly is in our minds. In our minds, we think like this, wanting and actually needing, let's say. You can describe it as wanting and needing, the difference. We think of them as separate. I want it, but I don't need it. And what you don't realize is that by wanting it, wanting leads to needing. And you might say, but then how could you say I need it? I don't go for it. Something has already changed. Even if you repress that, you say, no, I won't go for it, you're already in trouble. It's already going to create dissatisfaction, stress. It's where we talk about things like repression. You just bottle it up, and it's not healthy. You haven't succeeded just because you don't go after it. There's already needing in the sense that it's already changed you. But they are separate. I mean, they're you can think we think of them as separate in terms of wanting and then the having to do something about it. Upadana is more like needing.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's basically needing, but it's you don't always recognize it as needing. You think, oh, I just want it, but I didn't need it. No, when you want it, you're already in trouble. There's already something changing about you, and that's the upadana, how it has affected you. So there's going to be karma. There's going to be something you have to do about it, even if that something is just to say no, I won't go after it.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to ask one thing. What replaces then tanha or upadana when you make note of Vedana when it comes up?
It doesn't really replace it. I mean, you could say mindfulness replaces it. That's the sort of the technical answer, but it's not really replacing it. It's just that with mindfulness, because by mindfulness we mean grasping the object as it is. Let seeing just be seeing, hearing just hearing. When that's how you experience it, not seeing is good, seeing is bad, hearing is good. Seeing is seeing. There's no potential. There's no possibility for the arising of tanha. There's no nutriment for it. There's nothing that will trigger the craving. So it's not really that something replaces it. It's just that something cuts off its potential. Sati te sang niwarayang. Sati is that which hinders. No, hinders that which cuts off the streams. Basically cuts off the potential for craving.
So could you say then it leads to sati, which leads to wisdom?
Yes.
Thank you. Sanda, if you want to continue, I think we can stop here for today. Then we can continue with part 5 officially next time. I think it would be better.
Yeah, sati does two things. It cuts off the tanha in that moment. But it also, by cutting off the tanha, you think, oh, that's great, I've just solved the problem, there's no tanha. But of course, it can always come back. But sati does something else that's important about what you said, is that because of the lack of tanha, which is good in and of itself, I mean, that's great, you've freed yourself from tanha temporarily. But because of that, you have a clear mind. And that clear mind gives you, you might say insight, but it's not really insight. It just gives you a better perspective on reality. And that better perspective is seeing the three characteristics. And that better perspective means in the future, the potential to be triggered is gone because of wisdom. They're two separate things. Sati sangvara is different from jnana sangvara. Sangvara meaning restraint, or I guess you could call it restraint. Sati restrains the mind, cuts it, it blocks it. Because when you see the object just as it is, you take it just as it is. This is seeing. That cuts off the potential. That's called sati sangvara, restraint from sati. Jnana sangvara is different. Because of sati, then you see clearly, and this clarity develops over time, and it changes your perspective. That's called jnana sangvara. When you have this new perspective, then you don't even need sati per se. I mean, you don't need to apply it. You don't need to practice noting. Once you get to that point, I mean, basically, once you become enlightened, once you seek so clearly that your mind lets go, then you have jnana samvara, which means it wouldn't even arise anyway. There's no possibility for you to like or dislike or react or judge things as me or mine or good or bad. You're not triggered, not because you actively cultivate sati, but because you have jnana or wisdom.
Thank you for explaining, Bhante. And yeah, we can stop here for today's reading. So if you have any questions about the text and thoughts you want to share, then you are very welcome to do it now. And Subitsu will, during that time, also ask Q&A questions. So you shouldn't feel like you should stop asking questions or discussing once there are YouTube questions or Discord questions on screen. So we kind of mix both together, or we try to do it. But everyone is now welcome to ask questions either in chat or with your mic.
Laura, can I please ask a question relating to the last explanation that Bhante was giving? Would that be okay?
Yes, of course, yes.
Bhante, sanna, I think the way I pronounce in Pali might be a bit incorrect. Sanna and wanting, are they the same or they are a bit different? Thank you, Bhante.
Sanya.
No, sanna,
Yeah,
S-N-N-E. Yeah,
I assume you mean sanya. No, sanna is not really a word. Do you have a Burmese word, or are you taking it from this text in English?
I think S-A-N-N-E, those little accented one on two ends. But in Burmese, I pronounce it sanna. So sorry. Yeah.
Sanna as in the third aggregate? How do you say the 5 aggregates in Burmese?
Kanda ngaba.
No, but how do you each one? What's the first one? What's the second one?
I can't say it right. I can't remember how to say that, Bhante. I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering where you're getting this word from, so I can be sure you have the right word. Where are you getting this word from?
It's in Wikipedia as well, but I also see the Burmese word over there, S-A-N-N-A. So
where do you see the word?
Yes, you can see on the Wikipedia, S-A-N-N-A in Bali. So if you type that in Google.
The English Wikipedia?
Yes.
Okay, so you're talking about the word sanya. Those little accents it's like panyata. Do you know what a panyata is? In English, we have these things that you hit. Yes. The only word I know that has this little, it's not an English word originally, but we've borrowed it. So the nya, the little accent is actually a tilde. It's a squiggly line, and that makes it nya. So sanya, and it should be a long A on the end because it's a feminine word. So sanya is an interesting word because it is used in different ways, but let's not complicate things. Basically, it's mostly used to talk about the third aggregate, or even putting aside the aggregates, it's used to talk about the process or the aspect of the mental process that recognizes an object. So when you recognize a cat, you hear a sound of a cat and you recognize, hey, that's a cat. Or when you recognize this color is red, this color is blue. How you can remember this is because nya is the root for knowing. It's where we get the word jnana. It's where we get the word panya. Nya part means knowledge in regards to knowing. That's the root, nya. The sang at the beginning means connected. So the prefix sang means connected, or it's where we get sangyutta from. The Sangyutta Nikaya is the ones that are yutta sang, means they're collected together or connected together. But sang pasnya means you know something as connected to something else. In other words, like something else. So when you hear a sound, your mind says, that's like this other sound that I had before. It's a way of describing practically how recognition works, how we recognize things, because we've heard it before and we've created a concept about that type of sound. So when you hear a meowing, you can remember immediately that that's a cat, because you've seen the cats before and you've heard them make that sound. It has nothing to do with craving. It's nothing to do with wanting. Wanting is only something that comes afterwards. But there's a connection, because maybe you like cats, or maybe you're afraid of cats. My grandmother was actually afraid of cats. The only person I've ever met who was afraid of cats, but I guess it's a thing. She was actually afraid, literally afraid of cats. So that is how craving comes about, because you recognize something. Even if an example they give in the texts is of a rope. If you've ever stepped on a rope and jumped in the air, not because you recognize it as a rope, because you incorrectly recognized it as a snake. This is actually a thing. This happened to me when I was young. Step on a rope and you immediately jump because you think you've stepped on a snake, which would be a very scary thing, and you're afraid of snakes. Because of the sanya, the recognition, that's like a snake. It triggers wanting, or the opposite of wanting, the aversion towards it. Fear can be. The recognition is what we mean by sanya.
Thank you, Bhante. That's clear now. Thank you.
Okay, Bhante, I will now transition to the first question that we have in the chat. The question is, in the Dhammapada, it's said that Sabbe Sankhara Dukkha, all conditioned things are suffering. Wouldn't that mean that the aggregates in themselves are also suffering, as they are also conditioned?
So this goes back to what I was saying about the word dukkha. If you translate dukkha as suffering, it gets misunderstood in this way. I mean, it actually sounds like you're saying that they are suffering themselves. I mean, in the sense that they are unhappy, they are sad, right? They are experiencing suffering. And you say, "Oh, this is suffering." What does it even mean, right? Even grammatically, it sounds odd. But they're dukkha, meaning they're in the category of things that cannot satisfy you. That's the best, simplest way to understand it. And it's important to see them that way so that you stop clinging to them. You stop craving for them, and so you don't end up clinging to them and end up suffering from them. It's not really difficult to understand. It's just confusing and misleading. If you narrowly define dukkha as suffering, if you think of it as suffering or painful or something like that, right? And you misunderstand the meaning. They are dukkha. It's a way of saying they're not good. They're not what you should be clinging. They're not something that you should be clinging to. In other words, nothing. There's nothing you should be clinging to, because all sankharas are dukkha, meaning they're unable to satisfy you. And that goes for bad things as well. They're unable to satisfy you in the sense that painful things, you can't find satisfaction by getting rid of them, or in getting rid of them, because they can always come back. And the more you try to get rid of them, the more you suffer when they come back, the more you're triggered by their arising. Because by sankhara, he does mean aggregates. It is synonymous with the 5 aggregates. It is synonymous with, basically synonymous with the 5 aggregates, but they are not suffering. They are just not good, not worth clinging to.
Ante, here's the next question that we have. Why do I have very evil thoughts? Does it reflect how I am living out my life? Is there anything I can do about them apart from changing my reaction to them? Will they keep rising again and again?
So it's important, I've said this before, it's important to be able to separate thoughts from emotions or reactions. Thoughts cannot be evil. Thoughts do not have the capacity to be evil, and they don't have the potential to be evil. There's nothing intrinsic about a thought that makes it evil. I mean, you could say ideas are evil. The idea contained in a thought, if the idea contained in the thought is one should harm others, or one should harm oneself, or one should cling to things, or this sort of thing, you could say the idea is evil. But when I say the thought is not evil, it's important to understand that thought arising has no inherent negative consequences. The thought arising, no matter how bad or evil the concept contained therein is, that thought arising is not in and of itself inherently evil, has no potential for negative consequences. I mean, I just had several thoughts, as I said, harming others, and all these things I listed as being evil. Those thoughts arose in me. But you can't accuse me of giving rise to evil just because of that. So important to understand, the thoughts technically and practically are neutral. The problem is not the thoughts. The problem is how we react to them. So, and this goes for all thoughts, not just thoughts that you identify as evil, because as I've said, I think last week we were talking about this. The point is not to stop thinking. You can't stop the mind from thinking. Thoughts are just a part of nature, just like burping or urinating and defecating. Just as the physical processes are natural, so are the mental processes. The difference is that in the mind there are significant processes as well that have a real potential for causing suffering, and that's not the thoughts. It's the reactions to them, or the interpretation, how we perceive or conceive, how we take the thought. So your goal should never be to stop thinking. You should never say, through meditation, I expect that eventually I will never think again, or I will have experiences of not thinking. You might have experiences where you don't think much at all. That's not the goal. That can be valuable. It can be pleasant for sure when your mind stops chattering on. But the point is to stop reacting. And if you stop reacting, if you see the thoughts just as thoughts, and they lose their power over you, they stop stressing you, they stop instigating you to perform actual evil of getting upset, of being greedy or angry or worried or afraid. Try and separate them out. And we do this, of course, through the practice of mindfulness. If you've read our booklet on how to meditate, this will give you some idea on how to do this. But it's important to point out you have to be able to separate the thoughts from the emotions or the reactions. What you think about the thoughts. If you just think about the thoughts so that they are thoughts, then you free yourself from any potential for harm. Just try and see thinking as thinking. Vinyate vinyata matang bhavisati. This was the Buddha's advice. Let what is thought about just be what is thought about.
Here is the next question, Bhante. How can one use mindfulness to overcome alcoholism?
Alcoholism, drug abuse, these are difficult. Not impossible, not something you should feel hopeless towards. But if you really are serious about this question, if it's a problem that you have or someone you know has, it takes work. The best way is to undertake intensive practice of mindfulness. So, sorry, the best way to apply mindfulness is to undertake it intensively. How can you use mindfulness? The best way is to undergo what might be similar to a detox, but a detox through mindfulness. I don't know what an ordinary detox center is like. I'm sure they have strategies and methods. Probably some of them borrow from Buddhist concepts of mindfulness. But nothing beats the practice of mindfulness, especially in overcoming addiction. How you would use it, generally speaking, I mean, anytime there's craving for alcohol, I mean, you have to learn the mechanisms behind it, or the mechanics behind alcohol abuse. You have to learn about how you're triggered, learn about what drives you to drink. It can often be negative things. You seek out alcohol as a positive, right? It lets you forget, it lets you feel good. That's only because you're suffering, because you're stressed. And so you have to look at those things as well, the negative things that make you seek out something that you conceive of as pleasant and blissful. But it takes a lot of work. I mean, I can describe to you the things that you should do, but without intensive practice, if someone is actually truly an alcoholic, I mean, it takes dedication. People dedicate themselves to rehab or the 12-step program. Shouldn't be any different with dedicating yourself to mindfulness. Find time to do an intensive course. It takes about a month. You can change your life, really change your life. We also have an at-home course, which is a brief, a basic introduction. Not brief, it takes several months, but it's much less intensive. Something you can do, of course, at home. So you could look that up as well. Look on our website, we have a courses page. Everything's free. We're not trying to make money. Our YouTube channel has no ads on it. I just looked up, I went to the page to get to the live stream, and the dashboard tells us how much money we made this month. For some reason, it tells us we made approximately 2 cents, 2.7 cents or something. I don't know why it even says that, because we certainly haven't made any money. YouTube makes no money. Our courses make no money. To be clear, this is not in any way about money. I am supported, my livelihood is supported by the organization, and I'm grateful for that, for sure. I'm able to do what I do. But even that, I survive here in Sri Lanka in the forest, not really because of the organization, but people give me food, give me robes, give me shelter. But I'm able to do this work and help others because of the support of others, but it's all free. So I say that just in case anyone's suspicious or discouraged, thinking, oh, they're just here trying to get me to fork over money to do these courses. Be clear. When I tell you you should do these courses, it's I'm saying we'll do the free work as a gift to you. Never ask for anything in return. So that should be encouraging if you're interested. Next month, we're giving a bunch of gifts. Next month is my birthday, and the tradition on our birthdays in Buddhism is to give gifts to others. You don't expect gifts on your birthday. You do the opposite. You turn it on its head and say, it's my birthday, I will give gifts. And so the whole community came together. Many people have also joined. So sadhu to everyone who is going to take part in giving gifts. It's open-ended. We'll just however much people want to partake of this group giving, we'll give that much. No expectations. But yeah, we're in it for the goodness. Just trying to give as much as we can before we die. Because when you die, it's too late. Does my connection have problems?
No, we hear you, Bante. Just wanted to give some silence there. Sadhu, Bante, thank you so much for that. Any information that anyone wants to find out about our center is also in the description of the videos as well. Here is the next question, Bante. How can meditators know when to use reflection and contemplation rather than noting? Sometimes I have a fear of getting it wrong and missing something important. How can I overcome this worry?
You never really need to use reflection and contemplation. I mean, they happen by themselves and they can be useful. It's what you can do before you practice, reviewing what you're going to do after practice, reviewing how it went, what you maybe missed, what you did wrong, how you could improve. But it's not deeply important. It's the kind of thing that starts to happen by itself. But you can take a moment after you practice to reflect on how it went. Just don't think that that is somehow going to fix your problems. It's just can be practically useful. But fear and worry are not things you overcome. Trying to overcome things is not a great way of describing your goal. It kind of is true and it's correct, but the way you should look at it is not overcoming them, because basically what you're saying is getting rid of. And when you approach things with the active attitude of trying to get rid of them, you're approaching them as though they are problems. Even if they are problems, even for those things that are problems, if you approach them in that way, you're creating a negative attitude towards them. You're creating aversion towards them, even fear of them. And that negative attitude grows, it breeds, which is why mindfulness is so important, so special, so exceptional. Mindfulness is not about approaching things as though they are a problem to be overcome. You approach them as experiences, realities to be understood. So you should approach fear, you should approach worry as you would every other object, something to be understood. When you're afraid, you say to yourself, afraid, afraid, not trying to make it go away, not having that attitude, having the attitude of investigation. What is fear like? What's happening when I'm afraid? How does fear come about? You're not investigating, you're just looking, observing. And you're observing with an objective attitude, which is why the noting is so important. Noting is just telling yourself, hey, don't forget, this is only fear. Don't forget, this is only worry. Don't forget, this is only thinking. You do that, your mind is straight, and your experience of it, your observation of it is objective. And that's crucial, because without that objectivity, of course, then you react, you judge. Once the objectivity arises, you're able to see the three characteristics. You're able to see these things are not worth clinging to.
Bhante, here's the next question. If everything is dukkha, if everything is unsatisfactory, if nothing really exists, why not suicide and just end it all? What's the purpose of being alive if everything is quote-unquote stress, unsatisfactory, and impermanent?
That doesn't really follow. I mean, what you said is not really true. Your premises are not true, and your conclusion doesn't follow from your premises. I took a course many, many years ago in argumentation. Your argument doesn't really hold water. So let's focus on the premises first. Well, no, let's talk about the conclusion, I guess. I don't know how to approach this. Let's see how it goes. I'll try from the conclusion first. Why not just suicide and end it all? No, let's focus on the premises first. If everything is dukkha, okay, first of all, not everything is dukkha. All arisen things are dukkha. And that means they have the potential to cause you suffering if you cling to them. It's about the clearest way you can understand that. The reason why we use the word dukkha to describe them is to remind you they are not sukha. They are not something that you should look at and say, oh, that will make me happy, and thereby cling to it, right? Once you see that they are dukkha, you say, oh no, that won't cause me happiness. You become independent. So there's no problem with them arising. But if you look at them as sukha, if you say, oh, this will make me happy, then you're absolutely going to suffer. There's no way to avoid suffering. If you look at it as dukkha, oh no. It's like they are dukkha in the same way that fire is hot. When we say all arisen things are dukkha, or even let's say suffering. Let's say we use the word suffering. No problem. It's not a problem to translate it that way. You just have to understand what you mean. It's like saying fire is hot. Well, is fire really hot? How is fire hot? If one fire touches another fire, does the first fire say, oh, that's very hot? Does the first fire get burnt because it touched another fire? Something very, very hot touches the fire, does it get hotter? It even get colder, I guess. But if it's hotter than the fire, it's hot because you touch it. It's hot because when you touch it, you get burnt. You say, oh, don't touch that fire, it's hot. In other words, what it means is if you touch it, you're going to get burnt. If you don't touch it, you don't get burnt. It's not hot. You don't go near the fire, you don't get hot because of it. That's the idea. And then you say, if nothing really exists, that's also not true. Nothing really exists is not true. Things exist on two levels. They exist conceptually, which is a fancy way of saying that they're only in our minds, that these things exist practically. Without them, we can't function in society. If we don't say people exist, places exist, things exist, we can't function. And of course, Buddhists are no exception. Without the Buddha, we say the Buddha was our teacher. We talk about many kinds of concepts like walking meditation. Do walking meditation. We're talking conceptually. Does walking meditation not exist? Of course it exists. But in ultimate reality, at the very essence of it, walking is not a thing that exists, of course. All that exists is the experience, moment after moment after moment. So in the second type of reality is what we call ultimate reality, that which it really and truly exists in the sense that which can be experienced. And there's very limited things that can be experienced. Ultimately, it comes down to seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, and thinking. That's all that can actually be experienced. But that's all that we admit to being truly real. It's what you experience. But whether or not what you said is true or what I said is true, suicide has no connection with any of that. I mean, it would if you had said, if everything ends at death, that's the only way suicide really makes sense. If you say everything ends at death, why not just kill yourself? Why not? Because that's kind of, I guess, what you're insinuating. You're saying, okay, everything's bad, and when I die, that will be the end. Right? That's obviously what you're thinking here. You're saying, you're assuming that I believe you, that I agree with you, that I also take as a premise that when you die, the truth of, or the belief that when you die, there's nothing, which of course we don't as Buddhists, and we couldn't, and we shouldn't, because it doesn't bear out in experience. Experience doesn't indicate in any way that it will stop. Experience indicates just the opposite. Experience shows us, moment after moment, that we're constantly creating new reality. We're constantly creating new becoming, even in this life. When we take out a loan, when we seek out a relationship, when we engage in a relationship, when we acquire a possession, we create something new. When we hurt others, we create something new. We create animosity. We create a relationship with our enemies. Constantly creating and creating and creating. The moment of death, this doesn't change. This happens again. We create new at the moment of death. So killing yourself has no bearing on any of this, even if it all were true, that it's all useless and meaningless, that it's all unpleasant. If you kill yourself, well, it's just going to be more unpleasant. It will be worse because you've cultivated this aversion towards it. You've bought into this aversion, saying, yes, I should avoid this, I should run away from it, I should escape this. That's why as Buddhists we don't do that. Just because we say these things are suffering doesn't mean we run away from them. It's quite the opposite. We don't just say that they are suffering, that we say that you should learn that these things have the potential to cause you suffering if you cling to them. You should learn this, and you should learn to see them just as you see fire as hot and you don't touch it. You should learn to see these things as suffering in the way that if you cling to them, you will suffer. That's the first question. The second part of your question, what's the purpose of being alive? Regardless of what you believe about things being stressful or not, regardless of how you approach things as being stressful, or if you say everything is happiness or whatever, in no sense is there a purpose of life. There's no purpose in being alive. Purpose is something that humans give to things, that sentient beings apply to things that just exist. It doesn't matter whether you apply a purpose or not. Life continues. Life doesn't care. Samsara doesn't care if you have a purpose or not. If you say, this is the purpose, that doesn't care. It just keeps happening. You have no choice. Killing yourself, guess what? It just happens again. It's like one of those time loops. You just have to come back. So asking about a purpose doesn't have much purpose. Trying to make sense and find the right way to live, kind of like a purpose, but it's just what's right. It's right because it's internally consistent. Internally consistent in the sense that you want this and you get this. So we want to be happy. But we're not consistent because we want to be happy, yet we do so many things that cause us stress and suffering. This is called internally inconsistent. Our actions don't support our intentions. We do things to be happy. We do things because we want to be happy. But we do these things that cause us stress and suffering. That's inconsistent. The right way is to want to be happy and do the things that make you happy. When you can accomplish that, then you are internally consistent. Then you're right. You found the right way. You couldn't say it's the purpose, but it certainly is right in a way that the other way is wrong.
Maybe to add to that, or raise a further question. I hope I'm audible because it seems like I have connection issues. I would ask the question of why does there have to be a purpose? And I would say that goes back to what we talked about craving. I mean, why not just go along with, okay, maybe it would be even bad if there was a purpose. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we're just accustomed to looking for a purpose and having something to drive us onward. I mean, you could ask more directed, what is the purpose of meditation? And then you'd have your answer that purpose is to find what is right. But I think it more comes from theism. Purpose implies a creator, right? If someone created this universe, then there would have to be a purpose. So even people who are not theistic, we've grown up mostly in theistic societies in the West and in Europe and most of the non-Buddhist world. And so we're accustomed to thinking this way, that there's a purpose to life. But it makes no sense if there's no God that created the universe. So we fall into this because we're just used to it. We're accustomed to this way of looking at things because we come those of us who come from a Judeo-Christian or a Abrahamic background, or even Hinduism, I think, as creator. I'm not sure. I think so. Hinduism is complicated. Maybe it doesn't have a creator. But yeah, then it would have to have a purpose. Why was it created? I mean, not that you could ever find a reasonable purpose for this mess. People have tried.
In that sense, the theistic purpose is very self-centered, but you could, on the opposite, at least make up a purpose of helping others, I guess, or living a purposeful... You said it already, so you could see it in different ways of saying, my life has this kind of purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, the problem is that it's not really the purpose. It's just right. That's why using right, this word right, the Buddha used it, samma. He talked about his path as samma, being right, the right way, as opposed to the wrong way. He didn't talk about the purpose, because that would make no sense. The Buddha wasn't a theist. He didn't believe in some creator God, obviously. It would be silly. So if someone wants to follow the wrong path, well, then you could say they found their purpose. Not really, but it makes no difference to samsara. It makes no difference to the universe if you practice the wrong path or the right path. It just means you suffer.
Perhaps just one little observation. Perhaps it adds to our habit, like you said. It's just one of the many habits we have to seek a purpose. Or I'm not saying everybody has such a habit, but it exists, just like a craving exists. And
I think, it depends. Like, you can talk about having purpose. In other words, having a goal, having something driving you. It's just, the question here was, what is the purpose of life? Which is different. I mean, having a purpose is a bit different. Why do you live your life? Why do you do the things you do? That's perfectly valid in Buddhism, right? I have a purpose. We have a purpose. Buddhists have a purpose. I mean, that even sounds weird, because it sounds like I'm saying there's a purpose for us being born or something like that, which is not true. But we live purposeful lives. I guess it's just semantics. It's how the word has evolved. But I don't like using the word purpose is problematic, you see, because it confuses people. You think, you think you're saying God created you for some reason. Or
no, I see you're saying that there is a more layer to just the general habit. I do see what you mean. But and I suppose perhaps once we get to the wisdom part, we would know. Perhaps the question is not even framed right. For all we know, we are asking why is the triangle yellow? And when the answer is it has 3 corners, yellow is irrelevant. Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah, so the problem isn't with the word purpose. The problem is asking, what is the purpose of life? What is my purpose? What is the purpose that I was born? Because many religious and spiritual traditions try to answer these questions. You were born for this purpose. There's a reason. You were born to learn this lesson, yada, yada, yada. It's not true. We were born because of craving. We were born because we wanted to be reborn. We wanted more.
Precisely.
That's why we're always born. So the only, but purpose, if you ask, what is the purpose of meditation? Valid question with a valid answer. It's a good question. It's an important question that has a valid and very clear and simple answer. If you ask that, so the word purpose isn't a problem. When you ask a purpose about you're basically asking, what is the purpose of samsara? No purpose. It's like asking, what is the purpose of a tree? And if you ask that, then you say, that's why it's so silly. Because there is no purpose for a tree or a rock. What is the purpose of this rock here? Well, it doesn't have a purpose. It just fell there when it broke off from the other rock.
It just occurred to me that maybe I'm wrong, but did the Buddha have to deal with these type of religious people who worship a god or something? Because I don't remember he needing to deal with these type of wrong directions. Or so I mean, basically I haven't heard him express this as, you know, believing in a god or believing in this and that, which is unprovable, basically, is something that is wrong, for example.
Well, we get a sense that the Buddha was mostly surrounded by people who were above that. But absolutely, he was surrounded in India by lots of people who believed in God. Indra is the main god from the early Vedic texts, which form the core, the ancient core of Hinduism. But there are other gods that came along later as well. Shiva, there were the Shivites that I think were very much around when the Buddha was teaching. And he did talk about it sometimes. But for the most part, he didn't really have to, because it seems like the people, even those he was arguing with, were also non-theists, like the Jains and many ascetics. It was kind of a counterculture, I guess, in a way. But remember, the Brahmins were very big. Buddha just didn't engage with them so much because they were just wrong and very much uninterested in what he had to say. It's not entirely true. There are many quote-unquote Brahmins who became Buddhists, but the ones who were theists had no real interest in what he said. That's maybe a bit of a blanket statement. It's complicated, and there are instances where Buddha engaged with people who believed in God and certainly talked about people who believed in God. The Brahmajala Sutta is a good example of talking about the first sutta in the Digha Nikaya. He talks about different ways of belief in God, I think.
Bhante, Brahmanism is not about Brahma, right? Or is it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then I stand corrected. Thank you.
Yeah, but Brahmanism is complicated. It's been a little bit simplified. But yeah, the Brahmins, they believed that they were born from the lips of Brahma or something. I can't remember now. Born of Brahma, anyway.
I thought it was just a caste issue or a caste thing.
Yeah, but the reason they believed themselves to be higher is because they believed the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas. Anyway, I'm not an expert in these things, but I have studied them.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Bhante, going back to the word of purpose, is it a distinction that in one case the purpose means why something exists, and in the other case it's a motivation or a driving force, like for the purpose of why we meditate, and in contrast with the purpose of life?
Yeah, I don't think there's such a. I mean, we're just getting into the. I don't know. It's a bit semantics. I don't know. Because you can say, what is the purpose of meditating? And then you say, well, it's the action. But you can also say, what is the purpose of meditation? And then it's a thing, right? The existence. So what is the purpose of, why does meditation exist? Right? What is its purpose? Which is valid. A great question. But what is the purpose of samsara implies that we enter into samsara with some purpose, or samsara was created for some purpose, which is not true, but meditation was created as a system for some purpose. So that's why I say it has much to do with theism, where it comes from, because it comes from people asking, why did God create what was the purpose that God created the universe? Right? It's how the Jewish and Christian texts start. In the beginning there was light. Genesis, the creation myths.
Thank you, Bhante.
I don't think it even says why God created. It doesn't even tell you what the purpose is. It just says he did it, and we're stuck with it.
I guess that's one of the words that you can philosophize over a lot. I think philosophers like that term.
That's important to appreciate, that you can do whatever. There's no constraints. Constraints are not. You're doing the wrong thing, or you're going against the purpose. It's more, I guess, scientific than that. It's about that which brings results. That which brings the results that you seek. And the dukkha doesn't. Clinging doesn't.
Bhante, here's the next question that we have. Birth is suffering. Aging and death are suffering. So is life also suffering? Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? Is life a fight against suffering?
It's the same question, really. There is no meaning to life. Meaning is a different word, but I mean, the idea is the same. But meaning is interesting because it's much more general and much more applicable to so many things. We apply meaning to things. People hear a sound and they apply meaning to it. Oh, that's a bad omen. You hear, some people believe that when you hear a certain sound, it's a bad omen. When a black cat crosses your path, it's a bad omen. When you break a mirror, that's a bad omen. I give meaning to things. But the same thing goes. It's just another aspect of the same truth, that there's no deeper meaning behind any of it. It is what it is. But is life a fight against suffering? No, life is a consequence of clinging to those things that cause suffering, thinking that they are going to bring you happiness. And so you have to get old, sick, and die again and again and again. But if eventually you see those things more clearly, you aren't born again, so you don't get old and you don't get sick and you don't die. That's all. Or to put it in a way that's more palatable for people who are heavily invested in samsara, which most people are. We wouldn't be reborn if we weren't invested. Through clarity and through mindfulness, you'll at the very least begin to cleanse this attachment and have less clinging, and so suffer less. You might still be born, and so you'll have to because you're going to be born, there's no escape. You'll have to get old, you'll have to get sick, you'll have to die. But you might be surrounded by good people. You might be you might come in contact with all sorts of pleasant experiences because you have clarity of mind and purity of mind. It's a gradual process of freeing yourself from the stress and suffering. Because it's not true that everyone who is born suffers equally. Some people who are born suffer very much, others suffer hardly at all.
Bhante, here's the next question that we have. I gamble sometimes for fun at casinos. Sometimes I have lost a lot of money. In terms of Buddhism, is this a very unethical act? Has the Buddha said anything regarding gambling?
Yes, he did. He called it an abhayamukha. Abhayamukha, a doorway to loss. It's simple, right? Of course, if you gamble, you're going to lose money. But you lose a lot more than that as well. You lose your peace of mind. You lose the opportunity. Just think if you had used that money for something valuable, use that money for something beneficial. The other thing about gambling is it makes you lazy. People who buy a lottery ticket every week, that simple act of buying a lottery ticket can be quite powerful because you don't work to better yourself. You don't work to ask deeper questions. You think, when I win the lottery, right? I mean, for a lottery ticket, it's probably not that powerful because you know that your odds are very, very low. But a gambler thinks their odds are actually much higher. And so it's even worse because you stop doing anything useful, thinking that you'll gamble. Same goes with stock market. You know, people become complacent as they count their money that they have. You consider that the ideal in Buddhism is to give up all your money, put on a rag, cloth, pick up a bowl, and wander through the village for alms. Tell me how gambling fits in there. It's kind of a gamble because you don't know if you're going to get food or not. Maybe you don't get food. It's a different kind of gamble, I guess.
But gambling is also like, it can get really intense if you addictive, and it goes really well with other addictions like alcohol or drugs. It's like it fits perfectly with those.
If you're right. Like the Sigalovada Sutta is where the Buddha talks about this. So you should read the Sigalovada Sutta if you're interested in these sorts of things. It's the Digha Nikaya number 30 something. 31, I want to say, but to be sure.
It is 31.
31. Got it. So Digha Nikaya number 31. Read that in English. Definitely worth it. Everyone who lives in the world should read it. Even monks can read it. Sure. Worth reading. But it mentions the various reasons why, what happens when you gamble. Like gamblers are your friends, then you're surrounded by people who also gamble. That kind of thing.
Okay, Bhante, here is our last question that we have in the first tier. I had a situation where I felt lust towards a friend and noted it as lust. After that, I didn't feel lust towards her, but this lustful feeling remained, and I felt the same lust for her after a while. What should I do?
Well, lust is a long-term issue. It's something you're going to have to slowly deal with. A big part of why we're reborn as a human being, because the human realm is, well, it's the realm of lust. The human realm, the animal realms, these are the primary lust realms. You're very much mired in it, being born as a human being for the most part. Or most people are. Mindfulness will help. I have a video that's actually far more popular than I ever expected it would be on this topic. It's, I think, by far the most popular video on our channel. The title is maybe something that some people don't want to click on, but the title is Ask a Monk, Pornography and Masturbation. I don't know if those are okay words to say, but I'm not going to talk. I won't talk about them here. But this question was asked, and now that I think about it, I guess it's okay that that's a YouTube video. But it's important because this is a thing that people deal with. This person who asked the question felt that it was ruining their life. But the important part has nothing to do specifically with those topics. It has to do with addiction in general, and that there are three parts to addiction, basically. There is the stimulus. This is what you see or hear or smell or taste or feel or think. And that's important first because you don't actually feel lust towards the person. What you're feeling lust for ultimately is experiences, moments of experience. And seeing that is very important, very impactful in helping you change your perspective. So first is the thing that you see or hear or smell or taste or feel or think. The second part is how it makes you feel, the pleasure. Obviously, there's pleasure involved. And the third is the liking of that pleasure or the wanting, which are the same thing. You can't actually want something, you only like it. How that works is when we say we want something, what we're actually doing is envisioning it or imagining it in our minds. And liking arises based on that imagining. That's how wanting occurs. It's not really wanting. Liking it, and because of the liking, we make a determination to get it. We think of that as wanting, but it's actually just the liking impels you to chase. And every time you think of it, you like it, and you say, yes, gotta get it. So those three things, the Buddha said, are the essence of addiction. And they're the framework by which you come to see it clearly and cultivate wisdom that allows you to free yourself from the addiction. So when you see something you like, you should say seeing. Seeing, when you like it, you should say liking. When you feel pleasure, you can say pleasure, or happy. There is a fourth part, which is the conceptions about it. It's not included there, but it is something you can also keep in mind, is how you think about it. And that thinking can also lead to guilt. As for this person, they felt it was ruining their lives. The guilt over the feeling, self-hatred can arise. There's lots more that can come. These things, of course, you should note as well. But some thoughts you can have are like, I deserve this, it's right to chase after this. If it's a person, you often think, I should marry them because that's the right thing to do, and then we'll have a stable life, and so on. So you add much more. This is the extra stuff, the thought process that's not included in those three things. But practically speaking, if you just focus on those three, the stimulus, the feeling, pleasant feeling, and the liking of it, those three will get you very far. Change your perspective quite radically. again, it's something that's deeply entrenched, takes a lot of work, and really is best addressed through intensive meditation practice. So you're welcome to find a way to do an intensive meditation course in our tradition and see if that helps you.
That will conclude our session, everyone. Thank you so much, Bhante, for your time and your guidance and your wisdom today. Sadhu, 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 Bhante.
Thank you all. Thank you to the organizers and the readers, people who asked the questions. Thank you to those who have been, well, not just thank you, but much appreciation for those who have started making shorts, YouTube shorts, out of some of the things that I've said. So the purpose is never to showcase me or make me out to be some great teacher. I think I have capacity to explain things that's been honed over the years, so that's certainly true. But this is all just taking from others. And if there's one thing that I could pass on and say that I'm a firm believer in, and I think is a virtue that we should all ascribe to, is the ability to pass on teachings without trying to modify them or add our own ideas to them. Try our best to pass on the Buddha's teaching, and if we do any work, it's to translate it in ways that new viewers people with different perspectives are able to appreciate. But at the core of the Buddha's teaching doesn't change, that we follow our teacher's example all the way back to the Buddha. Much appreciation for those people who are finding these teachings. And again, I would encourage them not just think, oh, the monk said it, it must be right. Don't do that, please. Try and find only the good stuff and the best stuff. And if you think, yes, this is something that was said clearly and follows the teachings of the Buddha, let's use this as a vehicle to spread that teaching. But much appreciation, because it's actually, I think, brought a lot of people to learn these things. Certainly opened the door for many people. You can see it in the numbers. If you look at the number of people who are finding and watching the videos, it's increased greatly because of that. So much appreciation. And if people have ideas for, if they heard something and they think we should make a video out of that, please post it on our Discord. We have a channel dedicated to making these shorts now. So please go ahead and do that. If you want to get involved with making them, you're welcome to do that on our Discord server. Much appreciation to the board of directors and the volunteers for Sri Mangalo who keep the lights on and keep the organization going. To everyone who has helped in the past and has left the organization, much appreciation to them for getting us this far. Much appreciation to those people who have supported us, supported the organization, and allowed this work to continue. Appreciation for all of the work people here at the Sri Mangalo Meditation Center, people in the village who supply us daily with food, the workers who come to diligently build up new rooms for meditators, and of course to the head monk, Anoma Hamdru, who is a great inspiration as a person who runs a meditation center. He really is dedicated to the Buddha Sasana and is kind and thoughtful and helpful to us. And without him, we wouldn't have this new opportunity. We've tried so many times, and we've succeeded. We've succeeded in spreading the Buddha's teaching and bringing people to meditate, but we've never quite succeeded in setting up a meditation center for the long term. And it looks like we might now have something that is reasonably long term. We have a center, we have a space, and we have the support. So much appreciation. So the appreciation isn't just a thank you. As usual, I remind us all, as part of my duty here, to remind us that it's not just for others that we do these things. All of these good deeds that we perform, these are for our benefit first and foremost. So the appreciation is the appreciation and the betterment of yourself. And I wish sincerely and earnestly that through the power of all of this goodness, all of these good deeds of generosity and patience and kindness, and even just the good deed of showing up, listening, wanting to learn, wanting to make yourself a better person, wanting to find happiness is a good thing. We just go about it all wrong most of the time. And so coming here with that sincere intention to help yourself is the most noble pursuit. And through the power of all of this goodness, power of all the goodness that you come into this life with, that we bring here, all the good deeds that we've done in the past, all the good deeds in this life and in past lives, may all this goodness, along with the power, greatness of the Buddha, his teachings, and the Sangha who have passed on his teachings 2,500 years already, may all of these join together and protect us and guide us and free us from stress and suffering, from danger and calamity, from sickness, from enmity, from grief, from fear. May we prosper and find success in this life. May we live long and healthy and happy and strong life, a life with a strong mind, with the strength to face difficulty. The power of all of this goodness, may there be strength of mind to follow the Buddha's teaching, to face the difficult task of seeing things clearly as they are without judging or reacting or warping them to fit our craving and our aversion and our delusion. May we cultivate clarity and wisdom, mindfulness, and find peace, happiness, and freedom from suffering in this life and the next. May all good things come to all of you who listen to this and join this session on this day. Sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu,
sadhu.
sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.